in a world where people want to know what's up with Atlantis. What's up, familia? It's been a minute. I actually didn't feel too great a couple days, and we had to take a trip at the beginning of the week. And I'm trying to work on the, summit and some other things, but you know how it goes. What I found out when I was looking into this stream is, dude, I would have felt compelled to put this stream off another week or two, just constantly researching it. There's like an insane amount of information that goes into this. I know the first thing that everyone wants to figure out, and I would say because the mainstream focuses strictly on this part of it, is where it is. We will look into that, but I do not think that's where the gravy lies, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to the Legends at Rockfin. Shout out to Legends on YouTube. Working on the website and the app. Got to come up with an LLC, etc. But we should have some big things in the works. We get everything figured out. And I think it'll all work out. So there's that. All right, cool. Maybe doing a debate on the Crucible. We'll cover that stuff later. So I saw someone say they missed the trailer. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the little trailer I put together. Just a quick trailer. When I say quick, like I can't edit videos quick. So it's never quick. It's exhausting, actually. But I'll try to make them decently cool. We'll play the video, the trailer. And then we'll get started. And like I said, I know what everyone wants to know is, where is Atlantis? We're going to get into it. There's a ton of stuff to cover. I will say, there is a lot of gravy here. I would basically just go ahead and assume this is just part one. There is no way that I will be able to cover all of it. So what you going to do? As always, if you send a donation, I'll read at the end of the chat. $WitsitGetsIt on Cash App, Witsit@protonmail.com, or paypal.me/inaworld. You can also super chat. I'll throw it on the screen. Become a member. Whoop-de-whoop, you get it. All right. Now that the shilling is over. Oh yeah, just so people can spiral harder. I got a P.O. box. I don't remember the address right now, but my P.O. box number is 171433. Get triggered, bro. All right, let's come over here. We're gonna watch the trailer real fast, and then dive into it. How dare you put the wrong screen up? Yeah. All right. A lot of stuff in that. The dancing astronauts just wanted to play. They couldn't help it. All right. So a lot of different little things snuck in there. We're going to cover quite a bit, so I'm going to lay out kind of like the foundation here. So there's a story of Atlantis. Your editing is looking great. Well, thank you, but I think it needs some work. But so, you're going to get a lot of the gravy right here as the foundation. This is so we can progress. All right. The question is Atlantis a myth or was it real? Well, it kind of depends on where you are in the spectrum of truth. So if you look at it, we will be doing a lot of streams on this in the future, maybe a series, but every single ancient civilization says that entities came from the sky, taught them secrets, slept with some of their women, and were demigods and giants. And this is an ancient story that is told across the world. Now, according to mainstream official archaeology and historical timelines, this makes no sense. How would they all have the same story all across the world when they're all primitive losers that don't know how to communicate nor travel across the world? Why do they have all the same architecture, etc.? Anyone that knows anything about controlled opposition, they've come out on mainstream television on the History Channel for like the last decade or so, probably like 15 years almost now, I guess, with something called Ancient Aliens, where they begin to start to absorb a lot of this truth. All right, anyway. So if you want to know where I'm coming from, yes, I do think that something like this literally happened. I don't think that stupid atheist psychopaths that think everything has to do with math nowadays and don't even know what the world is somehow is smarter than the people that could do things that we still can't do to this day, because I'm not dumb. So with that being said, I do think Atlantis was a real place. Now, let's cover some of the basics of the story, and then I'll play a little video about one of the primary locations that seems to be the case. But I don't think the location is where the gravy lies. But anyway, so the story goes that Poseidon had 10 children, 5 sets of twins with mortal human women. Human's a grappled word, of course, the hue of a man. Keep up the great work. Your streams are fascinating. Thank you very much. A super chat and the kind words, and will do. Thank you, Jennifer. And for being a member. So, supposedly he had 5 sets of twins. He had 10 kings. There were 7 islands of Atlantis. And it was divvied up into 10 kingdoms, in which each one of his sons, reigned over a portion. And the first son that he had, the most powerful of his sons, was named Atlas. And that's why it's called Atlantis. Apparently the sea and the ocean was named after him, as well as the Atlantic. Of course, we do have the Atlantic City, city in the east, on the east coast of the U.S. We have, of course, the Atlantic Ocean, and we have Atlanta, abbreviated ATL. If you actually try to track the word back, you have to come into the Western world to find it, and it tracks back to ATL from the Mayan civilization, I believe it is. And they actually use that same symbol to depict the deluge or a flood. So it's very interesting. The mainstream cover story, which is a lie, I can go ahead and let you know, is the idea that this was a central place. It was just one place. It was, so we got to find where it's at in the world. There's this one place over here. That's not, I don't think that's in any way what it is. I think it was a one world civilization. I think it spanned the entire Earth. In fact, I think that there have been North Pole shifts. I think there have been major geographical changes. I think that a good portion of what used to be above the water is now under the water. I think that we just live on and inhabit the higher elevations of land. The rest is underwater. I think Antarctica used to not have ice. And I think that there was a central hub city of Atlantis, of this one world civilization called Atlantis. This hub city had a few different islands. It is said that Poseidon was the god. Of course, every time I say that word, it will be little g, but the word god is grappled anyway, and that's the Babylon deity for fortune and luck. And the creator's name is actually Yah, but I digress. So he's the god of the sea. He was given the sea. Okay? So just so you guys know where I'm going with this, I do not think that Atlantis is just some central location like, oh, look, we looked in Africa, we found it. Some people say it's Florida. Now, I think it's definitely possible that Florida is a port location of Atlantis, as they have found huge anchors there. We'll cover that a little bit. But I do not think there is a single place that sums up Atlantis. I don't want to give too much of the gravy away. So I guess what we'll do is we'll watch a video, maybe like 5 to 7 minutes of a video discussing what I consider to maybe be at the top of the list of central locations, right? So what's referred to as the city of Atlantis or Atlantis is actually a location of a central hub city. It is not what Atlantis is in entirety. It isn't just some civilization that existed with 25 to 350 miles. It was a world civilization. This is why there are many places that look like it could be Atlantis. This is why there is stuff found under the ocean that correlates to the stories of Atlantis all over the world. This is why there are stories of this all over the world. To give you a brief teaser of that gravy, Babylonia, so in the Eastern world, there are stories of this guy who came, who was a fish, half man, half fish, from the waist down, had a human head and a fish body, but wore a fish head on top of his head, which the Pope wears to this day. On his head represents the fish, looks exactly the same. He came out of the ocean, he came to the primitive civilizations, and he taught them how to read and to write, taught them language, taught them agriculture, taught them how to have laws and civilizations with order, taught them all kinds of different things. You come all the way back over here to the Eastern world, you have South American civilizations, multiple of them, a minimum of 3, claiming the same thing. Guy came outside of the oceans, came and told them civilized practices such as languages, agriculture, different rules, gave them a set of rules. In both scenarios, told them that they would leave and they would come back. And this is also in many other portions of the world. In China, even. China tells a story about when they weren't very civilized. A guy comes out of the water, half fish, comes and tells them all kinds of secret stories and secret practices, including magic and wizardry and stuff like this. Okay. So that's very interesting. We have a geographical representation of people that come out of the water that are like seemingly hybrid. Now, mainstream will tell you, oh, they said it was a fish because they were on a boat that had carved fish. They weren't actually fish. And when it says scales, it was talking about armor. And they have all kinds of mainstream explanations that explain it away because, of course, it sounds insane to say that someone that was half fish, half man came. They were genetic abominations of the Watchers. If you haven't gotten there yet, it's okay. I mean, you'll get there. I don't know all things. I could be wrong. Seemingly, I'm not, though. So, anyway, it's very interesting. And if you look at the text, what they say is that Atlantis had priests that would basically go out into the world to spread their civilization. The demigods, we'll call them, meaning the sons of God, which are angels, merged with humans and their offspring, and these different sons of God, which are angels. In the scriptures, sons of God and stars are referred to as angels. And what you will find is it's not just because I'm coming from a biblical perspective. This is actually biblical text. This objectively something happened if you put any value or credence into historicity of different geographical expressions. Anyway, the gods reigned over the whole earth. There was a one-world civilization. There was just a central hub. Okay, and that seems like Atlantis was the central hub of the antediluvian era. And so we'll get more into that. So we'll look into what seems to match a lot of the depictions of Atlantis in the modern world. I think that this could be where the central hub city was. It does geographically resemble it. But again, I don't think anyone's right or wrong. I think that what you don't get is it was around the whole world. And the story is actually that there were 7 islands, and there were 10. It was broken up into 10 kingdoms, with 10 kings coming from the 5 sets of twins of demigods. And of course, if you look up Atlas now, it'll have him holding the globe. He didn't hold a globe in ancient times, though. He held the sky, which is the firmament. Not to say he actually did that, but it's just funny. So it's anyone that thinks they have to find one location and that's the answer, they need to read more into Atlantis. And I would encourage you to read into occultic texts. I put a few of them. I put like New Atlantis from Francis Bacon in the trailer. So there's a bit of the gravy, but it's much more just like an overarching foundation. I realize there's no way I can cover all the gravy with Atlantis in one stream. It's literally not possible. It would actually become overwhelming. So we're going to kind of introduce the topic and go from there. Yeah. All right, so we're going to watch this video. And this is like the more mainstream, but still seemingly it has something to it. I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy, but shout out to Bright Insight. Feel free not to strike me, my guy. You guys go watch the video there. I'm only going to play a few minutes of it. Russell Gregory, welcome to the Miswits Level 1. Thank you for signing up. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for coming to Miswit. Much appreciated, Russell. All right, let's do it.
There is a bizarre place in the remote Western Sahara Desert called the Rishat Structure. And if you've never seen or heard of this place before, you are in for something truly fascinating. Some people refer to it as the Eye of the Sahara or the Eye of Africa, and when you see it from space, it's not hard to understand why. I mean, it really does look like an eye. And people are absolutely stunned when they see it for the first time. Between its unusual symmetrical shape, color, and immense size, it takes many people by curious surprise as they wonder not only what this thing is, but how did they go their whole life without seeing or hearing about it before. However, the fascination of this place goes far beyond its intriguing shape and design. 2 years ago, I made 3 videos where I shared more than a dozen remarkable similarities between this structure to that of Plato's description of the legendary.
How dare you?
As to whether or not it's possible that the lost city of Atlantis actually existed, and if so, had it been hiding in plain sight in the remote, desolate Mauritanian desert of Africa for thousands of years. But even for most people, when they hear the words Lost City of Atlantis, most would usually think of some animated Disney movie about a fictional underwater city or...
As you can tell, that's the thumbnail, and yeah, of course, Disney did cover it, which is very interesting, right? But we'll move on. Like I said, I'm only going to play a few minutes of this, but he does make some interesting points. Because I know a lot of people think this stream is just about, where is it at? It's not. That's not the gravy.
Or perhaps some beach resort in the Bahamas. However, a little known fact is that the true origins of the tale of Atlantis originates from the ancient Egyptians, as they had carved in stone that there were survivors of Atlantis, which were said to be a sophisticated civilization that existed some 12,000 years ago. That was until their island was obliterated by a cataclysm, and the survivors of Atlantis found their way to the Nile Delta region to start all over again as colonizers. And I'll be retouching on many of those similarities again in this video, as incredible new information has come to light.
None of that happened. They were all destroyed in the Great Flood.
And it is now time to revisit this topic again. You see, the interest in the Eye of the Sahara is not just limited to us here chatting about it over the internet, because it turns out that the CIA has also had quite an interest in this place as well, and it goes back decades. So get this, there are declassified CIA documents on the Rishat structure.
Oh, you mean like the flat Earth, the geocentric stationary plane Earth with the firmament and the, you know, electromagnetic weapons over a dielectric plane Earth that cuts through the block domain wall or inertial plane of a magnetic field, and that they know the brightness of the firmament? Oh, sorry, I digress.
Sure, the Eye of the Sahara. That's right, and I've seen the released files with my own eyes, and I'm going to share them with you here.
Isn't that interesting, though? Why would they be so interested in it? Oh, we'll get into it.
Here as well. And I have to say that this stuff is beyond interesting. However, let me just say that there's nothing in these declassified files that say anything about Atlantis or lost ancient civilizations. What they do say is quite interesting. However, what these files do not say, the parts that are redacted and still classified,
I wonder if you have a script down below you that you're reading.
Is really going to get you thinking. So where do I begin? Well, it turns out in 1967, the CIA conducted a secret mission where they sent military aircraft to conduct covert surveillance and scientific experiments on about a dozen different sites from around the world to study for geomagnetic anomalies.
Yeah, and the geomagnetic survey assumed a plane.
And of the few places in the world that they chose to study on this top secret mission, the mysterious Eye of the Sahara just so happened to be one of them. And like I said, the stated purpose of studying these sites was for identifying
Okay, what's interesting about it to me, look at the center, right? Okay, so there was like a high point in the center, according to all the stories around the world.
Geomagnetic anomalies, which, if you're not familiar, the Earth's geomagnetic field...
If you're not familiar, this is a cartoon and it's completely fake. This picture comes from a Harvard paper that literally explains how they cannot explain the magnetic field in today's day and age. They literally don't know how it works. This picture literally comes from a Harvard document that says we cannot explain the magnetic field on a globe Earth. So yeah, you think it's a magnetic anomaly? Probably, since you can't even talk about the dynamo threshold problem or come up with a dynamo model that even works in theory, and it's been a century straight of failures. But anyway.
Is what shields us from the vastness of space, which, when you think about it, is incredible. I mean,
it sure is an incredible fairy tale, man. Yeah, and then this one time, this dude went into a wardrobe and walked into Narnia and talked to talking lines.
It allows our planet to travel through the cosmos at incredible speeds.
It literally doesn't, though. So can we move on, please?
All while protected from the vacuum of space as we live comfortably.
It says beside a, like I didn't realize this was, that says beside a pressurized system that literally, you know, negates the possibility of it existing.
Comfortably and safely within a seemingly invisible shield that's in the shape of a bubble. So now that this secret mission is declassified, what were the results of that mission and the scientific experiments? Well, we don't know. Precisely match that specific detail of 3 rings of water and 2 of land. And not only that, interesting / bizarre all of this actually is. As I discussed in my previous videos, the story of Atlantis originates from the ancient Egyptians, and they had described an empire named Atlantis, which consisted of 10 kingdoms, and the capital of Atlantis was on an island that consisted of 3 rings of water and 2 of land, which, of course, when we look at the Richat structure, you see that it would precisely match that specific detail of 3 rings of water and 2 of land. And not only that, it was said to open to the sea at the south, which is exactly what you see here at the Richat. In fact, you can literally see the striations in the sand where water once flowed through it. But not only that, those white blemishes are indeed salt. An unbelievably significant detail, which I'll discuss more of in a moment.
Now, any logical person does have to admit, despite the fact this dude is clearly a bit misguided. I hope the best for you, though, my guy. Maybe you've come around to realize that your belief in a wall is stupid. But that is interesting, you know, that there used to be water here and that there's salt there. I mean, anyone that's being honest has to admit it's pretty weird.
But Atlantis was also said to have mountains to the north, mountains that were said to have rivers run through them, which, yes, there are mountains with evidence of ancient water flow north of the Richat. Atlantis was also said to be surrounded by a large plain, which also exists for hundreds of miles on both sides of the Richat structure. Another striking similarity is that Atlantis was said to consist of black, red, and white colored stone, which is incredibly interesting when you see all the stones of that color in and around the region of the Richat. There was also said to be an abundance of elephants, and elephants live in Mauritania today and have for thousands of years. In fact, there's an even ancient cave art depicting elephants not far from the Richat. And Atlantis was also said to have an abundance of exotic fruit and vegetables, which makes the case for it being in North Africa even more compelling, considering that we now know that the Sahara Desert didn't even exist until somewhere around 11,600 years ago, where it went from green to desert in practically an instant. But many people are not aware of this incredible fact.
There are trees and animals and plants there. Therefore, Atlantis.
That the Sahara had previously been a lush green tropical paradise at the same time that Atlantis was said to exist.
Okay, anyway, so we're going to move on. We'll show you, I'll just go back to find one more of the pictures. You can go watch this video if you want to, but it is interesting. This is how it's described to be laid out. Now, anyway, let's get into some gravy. I will say that's at the top of the list of what it could be. We'll watch another short video in a second. It's about Florida. Watch 2 minutes of it. This guy discovered these gigantic stone anchors, and Florida seems to have been a port of the city. But this is what truthers seem to have missed. Atlantis was a worldwide civilization. There are a few things that I need to cover for you guys. One, I do not believe the mainstream narrative of young Earth creationism and that the Earth is only 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years old. I think it could extend as far as 10 to 12,000 BC. I wouldn't go much further than that, but I do think that's the case. I do not think that a dispensationalist interpretation of the scriptures negate that either. We'll get into that later. But so, again, the primary thing I want to actually show you guys from the beginning here, because this is this is where the real gravy is to me. This was an antediluvian, fancy word for pre-flood. If you're waiting for my comeback McToon, you'll have to scrap it off your mom's teeth. All right, Blake 1991. I think he probably knows McLooney Tunes is a fan. So there you go. Thank you for the super chat. All right. Now, antediluvian, pre-flood, worldwide civilization. It had a hub. Everything referred to as the Greek pantheon and all this stuff, they were genetic abominations that came from the Watchers. Okay? Now, people say, oh, are those people from extraterrestrial, extra land? Are they from the outside lands? There may be outside lands. I certainly think there probably is land outside of what we know about. I think that they've now migrated there. I think they've actually been put there even at times. And many of the texts say that they went there. Maybe an ark used to be inhabited, places outside of that, etc., blah, blah, blah. But this is deeper than that. They come from a celestial estate. This is a big part to lay out so you understand. All these stories talk about this mountain of the gods. They talk about Mount Olympus. Now, it seems like what they're talking about is the center of the earth. Now, if you know anything about magnetism, and I think I may cover this, some gravy about the center of the earth for my presentation at the summit, which is True Earth Mountain Brew Summit, TEMMS.live. You could go there or you could be lame. But anyway, you couldn't go there. If you're made of matter, you couldn't go there. With the immensity of the earth, magnetic field on the earth, you can't go to the center. Now, if you were, I don't know, angels, you could go there. Okay, so it seems like that's like their actual, like where they go. So then what they did was they divided up the world. Now, there's Greek mythology that will say there was this, clash of the Titans and this huge fight between like their predecessors and the Titans, the subsequent offspring. And that gets into some more gravy we'll cover in the future, which is potential heavenly war resulting in mass destruction and cataclysm. And this is there a gap between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2? We'll get into that later. So anyway, moving on. Like I said, these Watchers, they divvied out the world amongst themselves. Okay, so they decided, you reign over here, you reign over here, you reign over here. The oceans were given to Poseidon. Now, rest assured, these are not their actual given names. Just like people say Satan and Lucifer and all these other names. You mean Azazel. Seemingly, you mean Azazel. Now, some argue it's not him, but whatever. Now, the point is that Poseidon was given this certain place. Now, it flourished due to the knowledge that they had, and it was named after his firstborn son to mortal women, who, by the way, they died when they gave birth to them. So they didn't carry a baby for 9 full months. They only carried a baby for a little bit, and then they died during their births. Now, you can say this is crazy because you probably have a bias against the scriptures, right? That's probably what it is. And I mean, I would just encourage you, don't be a baller, right? Where like, chill out, bro. This isn't just about the Bible, okay? If you think it's logical to claim that everywhere in the entire world claimed this happened, literally claimed it happened, around the whole world, thousands of years ago, and it's all fake because you say so and it's hard for you to believe, then you're not a truther, okay? I hate to break it to you. So the question is what really happened, and we're going to get into it more in depth. I have lots of stuff to show you guys. And I don't want to, I have to try to limit it, honestly. There's so much. But this is one of the main things I want to show you guys to start it off with. Okay, so like I said, Zeus, or Poseidon, had 5 sets of twins, okay? Now, seemingly this may have actually been true. They actually did have children. and they were revered as gods. They had lots of knowledge and information, and in fact, they had immortal spirits. And as they went through their generation, they had less and less immortality. Okay? And so they became less and less divine and more degraded, debased. All right, now let's come over here. Check this out. There were 10, of course, 5 sets of twin, all males, is 10. Okay? There were 10 kings over 10 kingdoms. In the antediluvian one-world civilization, and the occultic belief echoes this premise, and they literally want to replicate this again. Now, we'll get more into that in a second, but if you go right here, you will see Revelation 17, 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Okay, now this gets interesting. Unless you're not a truther and you're just checking out right now because I brought the Bible up. So, occultic belief, what they really believe is that the 7 sacred sciences, now these are the most powerful people in the world. Okay, the most powerful bloodlines. There are 13 of them, and they're not the 13 that you think there are, which is funny. Of course they're not. If they were able to control the world for so long, why would they let you know who they are? They believe that the 7 sacred sciences, which are all the subjects you were taught in school, by the way, and a few extra, so like arithmetic and dialectic and mathematica, geometria, which is measurement of the earth, the liberal sciences, they track them back to Cain, but specifically Enoch. So there were 2 Enochs. One is, we'll say, the evil Enoch, the son of Cain. He was a wizard, and he wrote like tens of thousands of books about astronomy and geometry and stuff like this. They track back the ancient knowledge to him. They believe basically this ancient knowledge, with the aid of divine intervention, pinnacled at Atlantis. And now there seems to be different names for Atlantis, and we'll get into that in a second. And anyway, they want to replicate that. So they want to bring forth a new world. Now, this is what they say. I get it sounds crazy. This is what they say. Okay? They say they want to rebuild a new Atlantis. We'll cover it in a second. There's something called New Atlantis from Francis Bacon. The Kabbalists also claim they want to rebuild Atlantis. Well, isn't that convenient? So you guys want a one-world civilization in which you rebuild Atlantis, which had 10 kingdoms ruled by 10 kings, and Revelation says that in the end they will have a one-world order with 10 kingdoms ruled by 10 kings that then give all their power to the beast. And actually, let's just come back over here so you fully get it. This book's just thousands of years old, probably all fake. You're super woke. So, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords, which means master of masters, and the King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Now, here is another scripture that seems to potentially point to Atlantis. How dare you not tell me what was in my Sunday school class? Save the theological spiraling for another channel, by the way. I'm not interested. Whether that be your anti-scriptural take or whatever. All right, here we go. Be still, or silent, you inhabitants of the isle, which is island, okay? So, be still or silent, you inhabitants of the island, and thou whom the merchants of the island of Zidon that pass over the sea have replenished, and by great waters the seed of Sahara, I'm not great with names, the harvest of the river is her revenue, and she is mart of nations. Okay, let me read this other translation here. Be silent, you people of the island, and your merchants of Sidon, whom the seafarers have enriched. Be ashamed, O Sidon, and you, O fortress of the sea, for the sea has spoken. Cross over to Tarshish. Well, you people of the island, as in cry. Is this your city of revelry, the old city whose feet have taken her to settle in far-off lands, who planned this against Tyre, the bestower of crowns, whose merchants and princes, whose traders are renowned in the earth? The Lord Almighty planned it, to bring low the pride of all glory and to humble all who are renowned on the earth. The Lord has stretched out his hand over the sea and made its kingdoms tremble. He has given an order concerning Phoenicia or Canaan, that her fortresses be destroyed. Now, I would have to say that that is some gravy. Do you think that sounds like some gravy? Does that kind of sound like Atlantis? It does. It does, right? So be silent, you people of the island, and your merchants, whom the seafarers have enriched. Now, all the ancient texts say that Atlanteans were incredible merchants, that they managed to grow practically every fruit and vegetable you could think of there, and they brought them to the city from right outside the city, right? And it says, be ashamed, O fortress of the sea, for the sea has spoken. What does that mean? Oh, the sea overtook the city. Okay, now, dude, this extends far beyond the Bible, bro. If anything, all this does is like add more validity to the scriptures being aligned with all the other history. Okay, dude, it's everywhere. Every civilization will cover it. So it says, cross over, cry, you people of the island. You people of what island? What's such a prominent city? That's an island that has great merchants that have enriched themselves across the entire earth. Is this your city of revelry, the old city whose feet have taken her to settle in far-off lands? Now, if you remember what I said, this is what seemed to have happened. The lands were divvied up, and Poseidon was given the sea. Had 10 twins, or 5 sets of twins, 10 children, 10 kingdoms, 10 kings, 7 islands. The story goes, they ended up moving through the rest of the world. So they got to where they were like, we want to take over the rest of the world. And a lot of their, we'll call them family members, already ruled across the world, right? So who planned this against Tyre, the bestower of crowns, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are renowned in the earth. The Lord, so Yah planned it to bring low the pride of all glory and to humble all who are renowned on the earth, meaning a king. Of course, if you know anything about Genesis 6, it's, the men of renown, which are basically heroic, superhero-esque legends. Yah stretched out his hand over the sea and made its kingdoms tremble. Now, this is where it continues to get incredibly interesting. The amount of texts that claim that something from the sky came down, hit the water, and then took out Atlantis is insane. So I want to cover for you guys all the cities that claim, if I can find it, that something fell from the sky, specifically Pleiades, from Pleiades, as in stars are sentient and come from the sky. That's weird. Yeah, the negative blood type thing, this does lead into that gravy. I'll give you a tidbit here, okay? This is what Germany was trying to search for. They believe the Aryan race, quote unquote, tracked back to the Atlanteans. A lot of the ruling bloodlines think that their blood tracks back to the Atlanteans, that they had ancient, advanced knowledge. And a lot of them think that they have specific blood that tracks back to them. And Plato says that what happened was over the course of time, they intermingled more and more and more with humans. And eventually they became of debased mind, meaning they lost their divinity or their wisdom and discernment, which was seemingly of a spiritually incomparable nature. And then they ended up becoming vulnerable, and eventually they fell to natural disaster. Okay, so here we go. This is quite interesting. How dare you, Austin? Okay, so numerous legends universally shout out the spark to the deluge, which is the Great Flood. Cataclysm came from the sky. Right? So cataclysm is rooted in a Greek word stemming from deluge. That's interesting, huh? While the word disaster is rooted in the Greek word meaning evil star. Now, they say it's evil, Now, what you need to understand, it's all backwards, bro. It's all backwards. So they say it's evil because they wiped out Atlantis. Well, Atlantis was evil, actually, right? I love the music. I also write lyrics. I sent you an email. We can talk about it at the summit. I bought a VIP ticket in your name, $25 tier 4 patron, and a membership here. So I'm supporting what I love so it doesn't disappear. Wow, thank you for all the support. And I will try to find your email, man. I'm trying to go through them. But yeah, dude, you're a legend. Thanks for all the support, and we will link up. Russell Gregory, thank you for support, brother. Much love. How dare you? How dare you? Now, this is what's going to blow your mind if you're an honest truther. How many people claim this happened, right? I mean, according to mainstream, they were primitive and stupid. They no way they were talking to each other, right? Now, we know that's probably ridiculous, but okay, so suggesting that the deluge was sparked by an evil star or god that crashed into the ocean. Again, cataclysm and disaster in Greek, deluge and evil star. The Epic of Gilgamesh documents the dams below releasing while the 7 judges of hell lit the land with their torches. Day became night and the land was smashed like a cup while water poured over people like tides in a battle. The 5th century CE Greek poet Nanos wrote that Zeus hurled a world conflagration, which is like compilation of fire, at the Titan king, suggesting something akin to an asteroid. Cool story, bro. In similar fashion, the Norse god Ida hurled stars from heaven unto the ocean, causing the worldwide cataclysm. The Mayan legend, Chalam Balam, recorded the deluge as being sparked by great pieces of smoke that fell from the sky and into the oceans. Legends from India recorded Brahma casting celestial projectiles into the ocean to destroy the giant Asuras, just as the Zoroastrian Zendavesta recorded the 3-headed star that fell from the heavens and into the oceans that caused the oceans to boil. Other legends, too, bear witness to the legends about the evil star that crashed into the ocean, and they're even more specific in detail. These legends all seem to wrap themselves around allegories concerning the constellation of the 7 stars, the 7 sisters, the Pleiades. In legend, these 7 sisters were known as Atlantices, daughters of Atlas, before being raised to the sky and into immortality. Mayan legends oddly remember survivors of the flood ascending to heaven as the Pleiades. Dude, the amount of people that have said something like this. As the Greek legends go, 2 of the Pleiades stars were removed and sent to Earth to destroy the world. The Hopi Indians regard the Pleiades as sisters and associate them with the deluge, just as the Cherokee and other Native American nations of the Lake States, Tennessee, and Carolinas have preserved stories regarding Unadastug, describing stars from the Pleiades that crash into the oceans with a fiery tail. The Aztecs, too, marked the Pleiades as the cause and start to the 4th age, or our current age. I mean post-Diluvian, right? Hawaiian legends recorded the earth became hot, the heavens turned out, and the earth was darkened by the rise of the Pleiades, just as the Aztec allies enshrined a temple dedicated to the meteorite that came from heaven and caused the deluge. Japanese legends recant the sky dragon devouring the Pleiades at this time, and West African legends describe the 7 chains of the flood, which are in fact the Pleiades. Finally, Greek legends connect Orion and Azazel, Orion and/or Azazel, the chief angel held accountable for bringing about the deluge, as being connected to Pleiades. Orion was imagined as the great hunter put to death by Artemis after his pursuit. Isn't it funny they called the moon rocket Artemis? After his pursuit of the Pleiades. Orion, the unknown great hunter, was also known in the Greek and Roman legends as the giant born from Poseidon and Gaia, the great mother. Isn't that interesting? So, I don't want to just read to you guys, but all that to say, did you hear, and there's more sitting here. Did you hear how many different civilizations said the same thing? Okay, now as a truther, you should be thinking, how does that work? What's up with that? How do all around the world at the same time, all these different people say this, basically the same story with a different spin on it? Now, here's what you might want to ask yourself. Who really are these angels? Right? Now, this is my take on it. Stars are sentient. Some of them rebelled. They came down. They could come to and fro. Most of them have appointed times. A good portion of them decided to abide within the appointed trajectories or motions or paths that they have. Some did not. Angels are sent on behalf of Yah to basically intervene at times. And that's what some of these stories may actually be about, right? Now, they claim that some of these gods went up into the sky and became immortalized. Now, what seems to have actually happened was some of them didn't listen. They ran around, went crazy, and then Enoch says they got chained up. So they're in a lower layer and they're chained up, and we call them planets, and they're wandering stars, those who wandered away from the appointed times. So anyway, we're going to move on. I find it very interesting, if you really pay attention, that almost no one would have thought the scriptures mentioned Atlantis, but they do. And it's not just the scriptures, it's all around the world. So the two fundamental overarching aspects of gravy here, the elites claim that they're going to take over the world. A new world order, a new Jerusalem, rebuild Solomon's temple. Now it says that Atlantis, the head city, right, it increased in elevation as you went to the center. And at the center there was a temple, right? And it had Poseidon that in this huge building was carved of gold, and his head touched the ceiling. Okay? So what temple are they really trying to rebuild? And what really is Solomon's temple? And you look into the wisdom of Solomon and the seal of Solomon, and that's a whole bunch of gravy. I've actually done a stream on that before. As have I, the people removed, which goes back to the idea that all these people with noble classes actually were, they say history was whitewashed. It seems actually backwards. And a lot of, although minorities, a lot of the noble classes were fair-skinned, blonde hair and or red hair with red beards and blue eyes. I'm obviously not just saying that because I have blue eyes and red hair. I mean, you could just look into it. And it's interesting because I think they track their blood to these people. Anyway, 333, watching the stream. It's all over. All right, so anyway, the overarching aspect of gravy here is that the people that seemingly run the world and the people that are inside their groups, most of them are lower level, they're just like pawns. They know they want to bring about this new age, this new world order, this new Jerusalem, dare I say, the new Atlantis. Okay? Now let's cover some of that. So another book that references Atlantis, it's a book called Necronomicon, and it's by Abdul Al-Azred. I'm going to definitely butcher names. A mad poet of Sana'a in Yemen. It's a book of dead names, and it's about the ancient demigods of Atlantis who were drowned in the Great Deluge. Why is this all over the world, bro? How do you not think that's weird? How could anyone interested in truth not be like, it's weird that it's all over the world? Okay, so Abdul writes of the Necronomicon civilizations and says that they were destroyed because of the knowledge contained within his book. It has some creepy symbols on it. This is the deed that must be avenged, the memory of which slumbers in the blood of their human offspring. That would be what we call the elite. They think that they have to avenge the deluge, and that they had built up this huge world power, incredibly advanced transportation, knowledge, wizardry, astronomical evidence, understanding of the sky. The 7 sacred liberal arts or sciences had been mastered, and they got reset. Now, if you know what Gnostic means, it means to know. It means knowledge. The word Gnostic is not intrinsically evil. Knowledge is not intrinsically evil. As not reading these extra biblical texts is not intrinsically evil. As a gun is not intrinsically evil. As the government is intrinsically evil. Knowledge doesn't have sentience. The only sentience involved in knowledge is that it's a process of understanding within one sentient consciousness, right? So knowledge isn't evil. Anyway, that is their religion. Religion is that knowledge is power. If you're the only one with that knowledge, you're more powerful relative to the other people. And it all stems back to the 7 sacred liberal arts, which is where we get our subjects of today. Now, they feel that they were reset and that their offspring had mastered coming across, taking over the whole world. Now, what they say is that the Atlanteans went to go conquer other portions of the world. And Zeus sent a prophet, and they said, don't do that. And they did it anyway. So then the gods took them out, including Poseidon. Now, what seems to have actually happened is there's either 2 options. There's one that some of these entities survived the flood or they reproduced after the flood. But either way, they always went and told the human stories to take credit for things they didn't do. So they claim they did this flood. They claim they're the creator. They claim they created us. They claim that they're here to save us. They claim all this different stuff, right? So anyway, what they believe, this is their Kabbalistic occultic belief system, is that they must avenge the blood of their blood relatives, right? And that it's ingrained in them and their offspring that they must avenge all of this knowledge being taken away from them. This is the way that they think. They don't care about what you're doing. They don't care about your 9 to 5 or that you got genetically modified 5 times. They just like, oh, the cattle are acting stupid again. They see this big picture of rebuilding Atlantis and avenging the deluge and basically trying to become undefeated in the future. So anyway, just as they slumber beneath the earth, waiting for the day that the stars will be right again and their descendants will perform the rites which will bring them up from the depths to reclaim their kingdom. Okay, now this isn't that ancient text I told you about. And the age of the gods will begin anew, the new Atlantis, or the New World Order. Now, this is also written by Francis Bacon, which is every single thing I'm talking to you about is a 2-hour stream. You think flat earth is gravy, bro. Look into Genesis 6 and everything that comes with that in the antediluvian era and Eden and what is Eden and what was in Eden and how can you get inside of what was Eden and what's in the center and is that the same thing and what were all these ancient gods and what were these demigods and what are the watchers and what are all the hybrids and what you want to talk about gravy, bro? Flat earth is like honestly not anywhere close to this. That's my opinion. I mean, all that to say, I can shatter your worldview about flat earth in a 2-hour stream. You still need to go look at yourself. I can't cover everything, but I can cover a lot. Each one of these topics is a 2, 3, 4-hour stream. Like the fact that Francis Bacon wrote New Atlantis. Who's Francis Bacon? Well, it appears that who is called, who's that stupid little dude that's super famous? Shakespeare, little grabbler. Shakespeare's just a caricature created, and it was actually Francis Bacon, who was incredibly successful with alchemical powers, was a wizard, a grand wizard, and was all into occultic magic and had basically mastered it. Okay? So what I'm saying is, think about it. I could obviously have to do a whole stream to back such a bold claim that actually Shakespeare didn't exist. It was Francis Bacon. But anyway, Francis Bacon wrote about the New Atlantis, and he actually referenced the United States as being the central hub for the New Atlantis. And one can ask yourself, well, is it possible that this was the central hub before? Because then when you look into, is America Egypt, which we're going to do a stream on that, is Florida potentially the central hub? Who knows? We were definitely lied to about the United States. It definitely wasn't discovered when they said it was. It definitely wasn't as primitive as they said it was. And so that's a whole nother thing. But now Francis Bacon specifically says that America will be the central hub of the New Atlantis. Okay? So we're going to move on. Now, here is what Kabbalist texts say. And if you know anything about Kabbalists and their ideologies, they have an immense amount of power, and it's a very popular belief, okay? And I would say my ideological enemy, though encompassed with lots of physical truths, as are the Vedic texts, as are Hermetic principles. I don't adhere to the Hermetic principles as a whole, as a spiritual guideline. I don't adhere to anything to do with this Kabbalist take on the world. That doesn't mean they get to take claim over physical truths. Like, everything is vibration. That's true. How do I know that? Well, I studied for a few years into all kinds of different aspects of physics, and that's the truth. There's no such thing as a state of rest. Everything has a quote-unquote spin, because they're obsessed with spin of balls, but it's actually an oscillation of vibration, right? Everything is a vibration. So nothing's at rest. So whenever an ancient principle of the Hermetic principle is that all things are connected, interconnected, and their vibration, well, everything's an ether modality and nothing's at rest. That's true. They don't get some type of I hate when truthers do this. If I say everything's vibration, the Hermetic principle is correct about that. Oh, why are you promoting the Hermetic principles? You think that these creepy grabblers get to acknowledge objective reality and the physics within, so therefore we don't get to know how things work? That's so stupid. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so here's a Kabbalist take from Kabbalist text. So far advanced were the Atlanteans that they functioned as demigods. Now, they were literally demigods, which means integrated with humans, possessing knowledge of even manipulating the weather. Now, If anyone saw, I think it's on Karen B's channel, but Sean from Kingdom and Context, his Flattoberfest speech, I think it's uploaded. And he covers this in a portion how all these ancient texts talk about this little mechanism they would hold in their hand, and they would say that it could control the weather. Now imagine walking around with something in your hand that's handheld. Like imagine this controlling the weather. Okay, now that's crazy. But what are they doing nowadays? They admittedly control the weather. You can go watch my Hurricane Ian stream. I cover that they clearly control the weather. HARP is just the freaking tip of the iceberg. That's publicly known about. It was started with DARPA for research purposes. They hijack the firmament, call it the ionosphere. They manipulate weather, admittedly artificially trigger lightning, rain, thunderstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, increase the magnitude of hurricanes, steer hurricanes, and much more. Okay? Now, as before, such will happen again, and there's nothing new under the sun, and they want to recreate this. So anyway, it's going to be where this power is given to a few, all right? So anyway, the Kabbalists, they revere this idea. They revere knowledge and power, which is synonymous to them. I would say power comes with humility, integrity, wisdom, discernment, nobility, righteousness, but to each their own. So now let's see here. According to the Jewish Kabbalist Eli Crystal, the Old Testament Ark of the Covenant was an inferior ark that had been modeled after an original Ark of the Covenant in Atlantis. Now, it's important to understand, dude, they don't think this is a fairy tale. They build their entire belief system and future plans upon this idea of Atlantis. You want to argue about, is it over here? Is it over there? They're like, look at the stupid peasants. They're arguing about which landmass is it. It was the whole world. They know the geography of today's Earth is not like it was back then. They also know we don't know the true geography of the Earth. None of you guys, you're going to argue about, oh, is it here? Was it here? Look at where the water is now. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's all changed. Just look at the magnetic pole. It's shifted. And if you actually look at what the scriptures say and what Jubilee says and stuff like that, and we'll get into some of that, it says that the magnetic pole is shifting. It explains how it would. So a lot of people get caught up on that. They think it's a globe thing or something. Like, no, it's not. Okay, but there was a major shift. The deluge alone would have rearranged everything. A lot of things that were above the water or under the water. I think the land itself could have broken up. It could have just been displaced. All kinds of things happened. It is not as it was back then. So they love seeing people like, of course, why do you think it's on the mainstream news? Is Atlantis discovered? Like, get out of here, bro. Although I will tell you one thing that's pretty interesting. Side note popped in my head. Because like I said, there's so much gravy with this. I've been researching it. It's like, it's kind of insane. So I think it's like Hephaestus or something, right? So the Greek god that is attributed to, let's see what Wikipedia says. A blacksmith, metalworking, carpentry, craftsman, artisanship, metallurgy, all right? Metallurgy. So this is the point that's interesting about that is, according to mainstream historians, they didn't know how to create alloys of metal until recently, like no further back than 1,000 years ago, like complex alloys. They discovered these things in the Atlantic Ocean that were 80% copper, 20% zinc. You don't just find zinc laying around. The only way to get zinc in any type of quantity that can be utilized is to actually refine it through, I think it's called stellarite, a certain type of crystal. So how were they doing this back then? Well, what they claim is that they had advanced metallic capability due to an angel or a god coming in telling them how it worked. Funny, the Watchers say one of the main things that the Watchers, or the Enoch says that one of the main things that the Watchers came down and said was, this is how to find the metal, this is where you find them, and then this is how you manipulate them for weaponry and different things. Now, they found alloy that's incredibly complex in the Atlantic Ocean from seemingly thousands of years ago, so that's kind of weird. Oh, I digress. All right, we're going to move on. There's so much gravy, I can only kind of briefly cover some of it. So anyway, the original Ark, so they say that the Jewish Kabbalist Eli Crystal claims that the Old Testament Ark of the Covenant was an inferior ark that had been modeled after an original Ark of the Covenant. This is how they view it, okay? Now, this original ark represented a covenant between the fallen angels and mankind. You see how they hijacked the truth, right? If you know anything about the Ark of the Covenant, it was actually that with us. It was a Yah making covenant with us. So when the Anunnaki first arrived from their home planet, which is the center of the earth and up, and the celestial realm. Okay, that's what it is. That's how I see it. So when they came from the place that is not materially accessible in the center and the high mountain within, because also the way I see it, Hashemayim means unseen existences, seemingly the ether, but that extends up, and then there are celestial realms. They could roam around back and forth, including to the center. You cannot. You're made of matter. So when they came from their place of residence that we cannot, and seemingly they came out of the sky to appear to humans, they brought with them a crucible called the Ark of the Covenant. This ark contained a peculiar pulsating crystal infused with a living light. Under guidance, it emitted rays of force. It was constructed as to become an instrument, a device, a storehouse containing the power to generate the very highest creative cosmic frequencies capable of transforming matter into pure energy and force, and energy and force into matter. Now, it's interesting that these stem from, like, this Jewish Kabbalist. The opinion goes way back. It's from ancient texts. Why were they saying matter and energy was interchangeable back then? Why were they claiming to be able to do that with manipulation of frequencies and oscillations? And that they could generate the highest creative cosmic frequencies capable of transforming energy into matter. Now imagine if these entities come to you and they say, look, you just don't get it, bro. Look at this. Wow, that's energy now. See, you can't see this. There's energy right here. Do you feel it? Bow, it's matter now. You'd be like, wow. Now, the way I see it, matter is actually a condensed version of low-frequency light. And so yeah, everything's ether modality. It's certainly physically possible according to all the evidence. But anyway, so it seems that's what they believe. They believe that this is one of the things that the Ark of the Covenant was, the original Ark of the Covenant, as they would call it, was capable of, which is pretty crazy. You need to know your enemy, man, if you want to know how to maneuver smoother. It was called an Ark of the Covenant because it possessed the potential of harmonizing its divine potencies with the material frequencies of earth, a covenant of love and peace between the sons of God who brought it and the sons of men, the earthborn. Now, just as we know that the enemy masquerades as an angel of light and that when people take over in the end, it will not be under the guise of breathing fire and stabbing you with needles and holding you down until you refuse to comply. It will come under the guise of peace and prosperity. And it's just obvious Hegelian dialectic, and this is how it works. Control the opposition. If you want to control the opposition, you must lead it, and very basic principles. You don't take over someone by force. It makes it much more difficult. You get them to do it by choice. They did the same thing here. I came and told the humans, look, we're here to help you. We're here to give you all the knowledge that you weren't given. You're being held back. Here are the secrets. Here, we want to make a pact with you. We're much more powerful than you, but we love you. And here's a pact. So you know, like, we'll never betray you. We're here to help you. Now, it seems like sometimes maybe they would even acknowledge the superior creator, but oftentimes they would claim to be that. They would claim to be to the creator. So, anyway, moving on. This is again from a Kabbalist text. Thus, it was the manifestation of a promise that the sons of God would never forsake the earthborn sons of men. The covenant was the pledge of eternal guidance and vigilance. That worked out. I wonder if that was before or after they began to literally eat them. So anyway, we're going to move on. Now, this does, again, all track back to seemingly like people like Enoch. With evil Enoch is one of their biggest people in Gnosticism because he wrote tens of thousands of texts about the seven sacred liberal sciences. Okay, so moving on. So now, of course, we know the Atlantic Ocean is named after seemingly Atlas or Atlantis. So, like I said, I think that the geography of the Earth is completely changed. Okay, I think that the geography of the Earth that we see now is nothing like what it was. And secondly, we actually don't know how a proper land layout. We don't even know the center of the Earth. Anyone trying to find a map of the flat Earth, it's a futile pursuit. I can assure you, don't know the answer. For one, you're going to have to add an entire landmass to sustain the quadrupole based on the data. There's a quadrupole. And you're going to have to know the center to properly align anything from that point. Now, we can defend Gleason maps and stuff like that because it's decent enough relative to what they think they know about the globe. But trust me, obviously, anyone that thinks the globe Earth is completely mapped out doesn't know where they live either. That's the whole trick. Anyway. So it seems like there could have been a huge landmass that was actually the central hub. And you get into the whole argument about stadia and how accurate is the alleged depictions from Plato, blah, blah, blah. And then you get into, is Plato a grabbled character? There's no way, we were already like an hour. a little over an hour in and I'm breezing through. There's no way I could sit here and tell you about everything I think about each one of these conversations. All right, so, because, it says here, Yah said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place and let the dry land appear. We'll get more into this when it comes to the idea of what's between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. All right, moving on. So, I think we kind of covered all I have here. But yeah, so like we've already covered that Poseidon, quote unquote, god of the sea. This is what Plato says: sired 5 pairs of male twins and mortal women. Poseidon appointed the eldest of these sons, Atlas the Titan, ruler of his beautiful island domain. Atlas became the personification of the mountains or pillars that held up the sky. It says that Atlas became the personification of mountains. That's pretty crazy, right? What's up with that? The Greek word Atlantis means island of Atlas, just as the word Atlantic Ocean means the ocean of Atlas. Firstborn Atlas had the continent and surrounding ocean named for him. Now, they make all kinds of claims. Now, this is the point that's important here, is that the creepy people that run the world believe this, and they want to rebuild Atlantis. I don't want to be too reiterative, but I mean, you should understand that. So it says around 9,000 years before the time of Plato, some say around to 11,000. The people of Atlantis became corrupt and greedy. The gods decided to destroy them. A violent earthquake shook the land. Giant waves rolled over the shores, and the island sank into the sea, never to be seen again. Now, what's very interesting about this is when Plato's talking about Atlantis, it like cuts off in the middle of him describing what Zeus is about to say. And when you look into New Atlantis by Francis Bacon, it cuts off in the middle of the sentence to end the book. I don't know if that's like a Gnostic tell, a cultic tell. I don't know if they've intentionally only released the end of the book to certain groups. I don't know how that works. Now, Manly P. Hall, if you know anything about him, 33rd degree Mason, I believe, he doesn't know about it either, but, some of them definitely lie. It's hard to get to it. Like I said, like Masonry, if you work with the Masonry, if you're not part of the bloodline, you're still not part of the bloodline. So, I will say they go around looking for people part of the bloodline. They're super creepy, but anyway, a lot of digression here. So it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia to boot. Again, the story is that they went to try to take over the rest of the world, which was already divvied out to different kingdoms of different demigods, and they were warned against it. And then they basically seem to have absorbed the true cause of the deluge and make up stories themselves. What is very interesting here is, if you guys want to say, no, dude, see, yeah, there might have been a great flood, but it had no type of supernatural or celestial intervention that caused it. Can you please explain how you can say that? I get it. Every civilization came up with a story about the flood. There was a flood. They all recorded the flood. Okay. They didn't just all record the flood. They claimed that sons of God and demigods caused the flood. And like with specific details as to how it happened. So you're getting weird to me if you're denying it. I don't know. You found your way to this channel, which means you fought through censorship. I mean, you obviously know I'm not just going to hold back here, but anyway. It was possible for the travelers at that time to cross from it to the other islands. Okay, I think we pretty much covered all the... Now, I don't care too much about the geography, personally. I don't know about you guys, but I will say this. In his Atlantis, Plato has posited that the last continent was located in the Atlantic Ocean. However, in 1904, Theosophist William Scott Elliot proposed that the southern islands of Atlantis were the original homeland of the Jews, who were a sub-race of Atlantean sorcerers. Now, beware of those in the end who claim to be Jews, but are in fact the synagogue of Satan. How long until they say the New Testament is anti-Semitic, I wonder? It's also interesting to note that Scott Elliot claimed that the other Atlantean island was the original homeland of the Semites, who were then a subrace of Atlantean sorcerers. So, it's interesting. Now, what I actually think about the Hebrew tribes is they span all pigments. I think that they're scattered amongst all the nations. I think they may all be brought to the United States. They could be brought to the Middle East, I don't know, but That's what I think. And I think that there's a smaller segment of them that track back to the tainted blood. And it got so out of hand that it had to be wiped out. And I think that that may happen again. And that it may happen in the form of 10 primary kingdoms. And when the demigods come present themselves, I don't know if they say angels or not. They don't really have to. See, I'm under the opinion that Flat Earth is very popular. And a lot of people think that at least it's possible, at the least. So they're going to have to incorporate Flat Earth into the lie. I don't think it will be aliens from intergalactic civilizations. They're like, oh, you guys didn't know there's stuff over there, bro. All right, so the ancient kingdom of Atlantis had 10 regions. The agenda behind the Templars' discovery of the New World was to recreate not ultimately a new Jerusalem, but a new Atlantis with also 10 regions. This is the gravy. This is definitely the main gravy here. So, all right, now what we're going to get into is a different take on where some of these people came from. Because if you hear about the Greek gods, they apparently came from. Okay, let me explain this to you. So what they claim is that the people didn't listen. They were trying, so they became more and more debased because they kept intermingling with humans. Now, this is what all the stories say. All the stories say that the giants and the demigods got smaller and smaller and smaller over time and became more and more debased, less and less divine. Their immortality began to degrade due to the mortality of men intertwining with them. And they would get to the point where they couldn't actually overcome the human tendencies. So then they eventually fell. And towards the end, when they did that, they wanted to go take over the whole world. And they were told not to, and they did this anyway. No. This is what's interesting, is they say before they decided to stop them, take them out, destroy their, that's what the extra-biblical texts say, take their civilization out, Zeus went to the center of the earth and met with everyone. Now, this obviously makes no sense on a globe. He went to the core of the earth. He went to the center of the earth where only they could go. Men could not go there. They went to the center of the earth, the center of a magnetic field, where they claim there's a mountain, that they overlook everything. They call it Mount Olympus. They obviously have a mainstream topic that they try to claim. So they went where none of the humans or the mortals could go, and they came with a plan, allegedly, to take out the rebellious people because they are so noble. What it seems like they've actually done is they've hijacked the actions of the benevolent entities or angels and tried to attribute them to the rebellious ones to deify them. But there's a second option. This is some some deeper level gravy. The second option is that they deified the good angels as well. And the good angels did not want them to deify them, but they did anyway. Now, I lean towards the first one and potentially somewhat of the second one. Now, if you look into Sodom and Gomorrah, I don't want to digress too much. If you Sodom and Gomorrah, if anyone's looked into it, like there's historical, like anthropological evidence that it actually happened. They found like 99.9% pure sulfur there. A lot of people were like, "Oh, how crazy mean and evil and heartless of the Creator to kill them." But if you know anything about sulfur and what all was found there, you would just pass out. You would inhale it, pass out. You wouldn't even feel pain. But anyway, the story is that there were two angels there, and they tried to have sex with the angels, or they tried to get the angels to have sex. Now, your mainstream church will just skip over it. Christianity will skip over it. I don't mind you being upset with mainstream Christianity. It's trash in lots of ways, but that doesn't mean you should just ignore what the truth is. So they won't acknowledge this, but this is what actually was going on. The reason that the rebellion of the angels was compared to Sodom and Gomorrah for sexual immorality is because, or more so Sodom and Gomorrah was compared to the sexual immorality of them, and vice versa, is because they were trying to get the angels to recreate other demigods. They approached the angels and wanted them to have sex with humans to create more demigods that they could worship. That's what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah that you were never told. But all right, anyway, so I want to read this part here. Ezekiel 31:15, thus saith the Lord God, in the day he went to the grave and went down to the grave, I caused a mourning. I created the deep for him. I restrained the floods thereof, and the great waters were stayed, and I caused Lebanon to mourn for him, and all the trees of the field tainted for him. I actually need to read a different verse before this. Ezekiel 27:32-36. And in their wailing they shall take up their lamentation for thee, and lamentation over thee, saying, what city is like Tyrus, like the destroyed in the midst of the sea? What? What's it talking about? What is Ezekiel talking about, bro? And in their wailing or crying, weeping, they shall take up a lamentation for thee and lament over thee, saying, what city is like Tyrus, like that destroyed in the midst of the sea? Atlantis was the most advanced city that we've had here. And the elite know that. They want to replicate it. Seemingly, they may eventually pull it off. It was destroyed by the ocean. This is what every single piece of information that you actually research into diligently will tell you. Verse 33. Thanks for sharing the insight regarding Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, no problem. When thy wares went forth out of the seas, thou fillest many people. You did enrich the kings of the earth with the multitude of thy riches and thy merchandise. Whoa, this is getting weird. It's almost like it's talking about Atlantis or something. In the time when thou shalt be broken by the seas in the depths of the waters, your merchandise and all your company in the midst of you shall fall. All the inhabitants of the islands shall be astonished at thee, and their kingdom shall be sore afraid. They shall be troubled in their countenance. What's going on? How are you never told that there was an immense city that is basically said to be incomparable to any other city? And it was destroyed by the sea, by the oceans, and it was islands with like crazy powerful merchants. How have you never heard this? I never heard this. How did they manage to like pull this past us, right? That's crazy. The merchants among the people shall hiss at thee. Thou shalt be a terror and never shalt be anymore. So I find that pretty crazy. In a world. All right, now we're going to move on. This is some gravy. I know some of you guys check out with the Bible, but if you immediately lose interest with the Bible, it may be something you look into. I'm just saying, no. You don't have a problem when I read the other text. We get excited when I read the other text. That's weird. Ezekiel 28, 12 through 15. Son of man, take up lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and saying to him, thus saith the Lord Yah, thou sealest up the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Love your channel, bro. Keep up the good work. And Yah will bless you. Much love. Thank you very much for the kind words and support. Colonel Carbine. Sorry. Carbine. Colonel Carbine. Thank you. Divide our super chat in the kind words. All right. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of Yah. Every precious stone was thy covering, the Sardis, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tablets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day and thou was created. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee forth. I was upon the holy mountain of Yah. Thou hast walked up and down the midst of the stones of fire. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created till iniquity was found in thee. I believe it's talking about the rebellious angels that were taking out, that ended up creating all kinds of gigantic, very powerful cities in the islands and had to be taken out. And we weren't told about it. So we're going to move on. I won't make it just, I know, I want to kind of maintain you Bible haters. I don't want you guys to get too triggered. I mean, you got to admit, you never told that Atlantis is in the Bible, though, right? I mean, maybe some of you have. Okay, there's more, but anyway, we're going to move on to something else. I'll show you guys, like, allegedly Florida being Atlantis, but I find that to be somewhat boring. I know people check out when they just see me talking. Okay, so some suggest that this passage in Psalms was testifying about the star that crashed into the ocean. Now, if you guys just now remember earlier, I read off like 15 different civilizations that claim a star came from the sky, crashed into the ocean, and caused the flood. Now, if you read the scriptures, you find out it's like it was volcanoes and earthquakes and stuff coming from the bottom and the heavens, and it was a crazy situation. The world got wiped out. Anyway, this is Psalm 18:7 through 16. The earth trembled and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains shook. They trembled because he was angry. Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire come from his mouth. Burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under his feet. He mounted the cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his coverings. The canopy surrounded him, and dark rains clouds of the sky. Out of the brightness of the presence, clouds advanced with hailstones and bolts of lightning. Yah thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded. He shot his arrows and scattered the enemies. Great bolts of lightning and routed them. The valleys of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare at your rebuke, Yah, at the blast of the breath from your nostrils. He reached down from on high and took a hold of me. He drew me out of the deep waters. Which is pretty crazy. I learned so much when you debated the Globe, or maybe a month ago. I always learn more and more. It's amazing how great Yah is and his mighty hands. Through that, thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that the debate helped you out. Thank you for the super chat. Colonel Carbine. What? It's a pretty funny name. Colonel Carbine. All right. How dare you, Austin? What I'll do is I'll play you guys a video so you don't... I'll break it up for you. But okay, so one thing that's interesting is what the stories of Atlantis say. Is they say that they were known to wear giant helmets, and that's what the Greeks were, and the Spartans and stuff like this. They were building their helmets based on the stories of the demigods and the titans that wore helmets when they were warriors. They fought amongst each other. And what also people don't know is these bloodlines fight amongst each other as well, because they're trying to fight over their hierarchy in the new Atlantis to come, and like where they are in the hierarchy. And so back in the day, you know, these demigods and stuff, they fought over the same thing. They were territorial. They wanted the most power. They wanted to be worshipped as God the most. And so, you know, there's no way for me to verify the veracity of this video. But anyway, now think about what I just told you about giant titans wearing giant helmets. And that's what the Greeks rebuilt their helmets after. And look what was found in the ocean. Now, obviously, this could just be architecture that resembles a helmet, but look how big the head is compared to the guy. Let's see. Off subject, but any specific Freemason books you'd recommend that talk about flat Earth more than others? Keep crushing it, my dude. Would love to meet up if you're ever in Nashville. Thank you, Samuel Paul Seckler, for the $10 super chat. Almost all the books that reference flat Earth, like Masonic books, they just briefly touch on it. Like, there's not a book just about that or anything. That I found. But there's a book by Albert Pike called Morals and Dogma. And it talks about flat Earth in there. And planar geometry. I can't think off the top of my head. I'll try to remember. Maybe shoot me an email with like all caps Masonic FE books in the subject or something like that. Yeah, the Albert Pike book is one of them that pops off the top of my head, but I don't know. All right, so I find that pretty interesting. They found a giant helmet under the ocean. What a coincidence. Dude, Atlantis is just under the ocean. First of all, Atlantis is, a one-world civilization. It had 7 islands, is what the evidence shows. And a lot of the stuff's under the ocean, bro. Why do you think they're so obsessed with the ocean? Why do you think all the stories said they came out of the ocean all around the world? How does China communicate with people in South America who communicate with people in Babylonia and in the Eastern world? And they all claim someone came out of the sea and told them all the advancements they didn't know when they were primitive, and didn't even know how to cook their food. And then they taught them how to do agriculture, how to make fire, how to cook their food, how to speak and write, how to come up with languages and laws. Why do they all say that? And they claim the dude wore a fish hat, and then what's the Pope wear to this day? You have to understand, these people they're in the group in the sense that they were told some of these big pieces of knowledge, and they fight amongst each other to be rolling within the hierarchy. We give them too much credit. They don't know what's going on. It's a spiritual war. You want to know how some of these deceptions are pulled off? It's not the competence of psychopaths that have been inbred for centuries, I can assure you. It's a spiritual guidance. It's a fractal, and it all falls aligned within like geometric expressions of energy over the course of a long period of time because it isn't limited to human input. And anyway, you don't need to be scared of them. You don't need to give them tons of credit, anything like that. When you say them, who is them? I've already told you, the occultic groups of people that believe in this and believe their bloodlines are superior to you. We'll get into the specifics of who it is. It doesn't matter, though. Right? It's like, who lied to you about the globe? It doesn't matter, bro. What matters is you realizing it's not a globe, applying that knowledge to your life, how it can be applied in a useful way. We shouldn't be scared of them. They fight with each other. They're running around with their heads cut off. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know when it's going to happen. It's not up to them. So they think they're special boys, but they really aren't that special, and they really don't know what's happening. But nevertheless, they do have some pieces of information that was hidden from you that seem to have truth to it. And as a truther, you must diligently research and figure out exactly what it was that happened. You feel what I'm saying? I think I kind of covered the history of Poseidon, so I'm not going to show you guys that video. I didn't want to anyway. Okay, so I'll show you this little intro so you guys can watch this documentary if you want to. We'll just watch a few minutes of it, then we'll get back into some gravy. This is about the alleged Atlantis evidence for Florida.
The Saxor Stones, presented by Dr. Narco Longo. Of all the mysteries that I have come across while researching Florida, there is one story, or rather saga, which captivates me like no other. It is that of John Saxor and the cover-up of his groundbreaking archaeological discoveries. Were you aware that Florida possesses the largest ancient stone anchors in the world? Ironically, these are also the oldest ancient stone anchors known to man, estimated to be between 6,000 and 15,000 years old. John was the first person to recognize the presence of these anchors due to his 10-plus years as an Egyptologist and pyramidologist. While Saxor's discoveries received worldwide interest early on, his theories have subsequently been ignored by mainstream academia, with many articles about his research being deleted in the last few years. For those of you that haven't watched my video, The Saxor Saga, the link is in the description. Over the last month, I have tracked down the elusive Mr. Saxor, and together, we filmed what I hope will be the most concise presentation yet of his earth-shattering research. This documentary will contain never-before-seen footage of the lost stone anchors of ancient Florida, the capital seaport of Atlantis. Now enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's just a baseless assertion. I think that you could find those all over the world. From my understanding, and a lot of them have been found in different places in the world. I think majority of them are in the ocean. I don't think that Florida was anything. Florida was just one of many places that had similar architecture, and they had learned a lot from Atlantis. It was a one-world civilization, bro. That's what it was. They came around. Now, I think it was the Mayans. Sorry, I've been consuming so much information about this. I'm almost positive it was the Mayans that claimed that when Atlantis was destroyed in the central city of Atlantis, 60 million people died. So that's a lot of people. And they had a gold statue of Poseidon in the central tower at the top. And they had rules and they had laws and they had to follow the rules. And allegedly the rules were of nobility and moral integrity. But it would be similar to like New Age integrity. You're a god. Tap inside yourself. It's all about you. When the truth, it's a bastardization of the truth. You do have a piece of Yah in you. You have light within you. Once you become genetically manipulated in the end, you take the mark, the light will no longer shine within you. But you're not a god, dude. Let it go. You're not. It's logically bankrupt anyway. What they were doing was looking at humans like, you're so easy to deceive. It's like laughable. 60 million sounds high. Does it though? I mean, this is antediluvian. How many people lived on the earth then? I don't know. That's why I brought up the number, because it's insane. Like the Mayans claimed that there were 60 million. If you try to track back the word Atlantis, you're going to find yourself in the Mayan civilization. That's the oldest you're going to find. And again, is ATL, and it's a certain time of the year, and it represents the first civilization, and it's also the symbol for the deluge. So seemingly what's in front of us is evidence that it was a one-world civilization. Okay, and it was super advanced. It isn't some like, oh, is that Atlantis? Look, there are some circles in the ground. It may be the central city. Who knows? Maybe not. All the land is shifted. That's not the gravy. That's a distraction. They don't want you to know they want to rebuild Atlantis. How dare you, Austin? All right, let's read some more of this. Atlanteans were... Actually, we're going to read a little bit more. How many are NPCs? I don't know. Even though Atlantis slid into corruption and violence before it was destroyed, it is still fondly remembered as a mythological civilization advanced in knowledge and technology. Atlantis was so advanced that the essential arts of civilization, the 7 spurious sciences, which I covered a second ago, were attributed to originating back to Atlantis through Egypt. So Egypt claimed they came from Atlantis. We're getting to the gap here. I don't want to give too much of the grave away, but I'll hold off. One should note that the words arts and technologies were interchangeable in Old Greek. All this once more echoes the legends regarding the 7 liberal arts inherited by Cain and his descendants, specifically Enoch. Certainly perverted astrology was one of the 7 sacred sciences of Cain, inherited by the evil Enoch, which Atlas was credited with perfecting to an art form. Atlanteans were revered as being the first civilizers. Just so you understand, what they think is that Adam was given these sacred pieces of knowledge within the heavenly realm, effectively the heavenly realm of Eden. And though he fell, he maintained that knowledge, passed it on, and then it was progressed into different texts, tens of thousands of them, specifically by the sorcerer of Enoch from Canaan. Atlanteans were revered as being the first civilizers, the first navigators, the first merchants, and the first colonizers. Now, if you look into the Germans, what they were trying to do is they were trying to track back to Atlantis. Now, we have ancient maps that I could show you guys in a second. I have a bunch of ancient maps. And one of them, you can look at the ancient map of the sea gods and stuff like that. It shows an Antarctica as this huge piece of land that goes around the outside effectively in different portions. And it shows it with no ice. It shows it with vegetation as if it was inhabited with huge structures. Now, the Germans were obsessed with Atlantis, and they were trying to figure out the Aryan race, which they think tracked back to the Atlanteans. And they claimed, as many occultic texts do, that they were the source of a fair-skinned group of people that were typically taller, had red hair and blue eyes, or blonde hair and red beards, and that they came and showed archery. They showed how to ride horses. They showed agricultural skills. They showed all these different things that people didn't know, and that all this advancement can be attributed to them. And as they searched for this ancient knowledge, they ended up figuring out how they would phrase it was overcoming the Jewish mysticism of physics. They applied ether physics, and they were able to make the SS bell, right, where they had a little bell, because the German word translates to bell, basically UFO. And they applied ether physics and had tons of success. They continued to research, continued to go around exploring, and then they seemed to find themselves obsessed with Antarctica. So it seems that a lot of these entities may have basically been put out to the edge of the earth, which is what the texts say. The scriptural texts say that they were banished to the edges of the earth. And maybe they're there, maybe they are now outer ponders, and they want to get back. And in the time of Germany, they would still be out there. Anyway, this is a very popular idea within the occult, including the Germans. Not coincidentally, the Giza monuments, inclusive of the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, are believed by cutting-edge authors, such as Hancock, to be memorials to a highly advanced civilization destroyed by the flood. The esoteric thinker George Ivanovich believed that they were built by Atlanteans. Again, all this underscores biblical and Freemasonry records testifying to a similar advanced civilization that became mad from knowledge and power. The age of Atlantis was referred to in Egyptian mythology as the first time. The first time in Egyptian mythology was the antediluvian epoch, when the gods came down to the earth, and the age when the gods first established their kingdoms, again reminiscent of Deuteronomy. This was the epoch of the gods, or Zep Tepi, which includes famous gods from the Egyptian pantheon, gods like Thoth, Hermes, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. These are all the same characters with different names. Greeks too recorded the Golden Age, or the first time, as it would be coined by the Egyptians, as an age when humans converse with the gods directly. You think this is all fake, bro? The Greeks too recorded the Golden Age, the first time, as an age when humans converse with the gods directly, and mortal women had children by the gods, and there was no sadness and no requirement for work, and the food was abundant. In truth, many Greek legends assert that the Greek ancestors derived from the Ophites, the serpent people from the Western Sea, the Atlanteans. Hold on to that. That is a bunch of gravy we're going to get into, and I might wrap it up at around 2 hours. We'll have to do a part 2. To this end, and I'll make a PowerPoint for you next time. Dude, it just takes a lot of time to do this stuff, man. In truth, many Greek legends assert that the Greek ancestors derived from the Ophites, the serpent people from the Western Sea, or the Atlanteans. To this end, Greeks recorded that Ethiopia of antiquity was originally recorded as the coast of North Africa, a part of the original Atlantean Empire, as you will recall, and that Ethiopia only moved its literal location after the rise of the Moroccan Empire. Now, this does make that, that's why I showed you that one location. I don't want to get into what's the location. There's 20 claimed locations, and I think it's bigger than that, but the Africa one is interesting because Ethiopia was originally translated from Greek as Aetiops or Ops, the mountain of serpents. Gnan, in his work An Ethiopic History, notes Ethiopia was a post-deluge appellation for Atlantis, stemming from the root Ethiops of North Africa. Greeks too believe Atlantis derived from the first king Atlas and the mountain of Atlas. Hence, Plato recorded Atlantis as Atlantikos Nessos, the Atlantic island. All this testifies to the validity of the Atlantis Empire being located to the north and west of North Africa. Now, what it should say, based on my research, is that the central hub of the Atlantean Empire stemmed the whole world. It was a one world order. One part that I'm going to start talking to you guys about, which is seriously some gravy. And the reason that's important is, of course, look at the mountains named after Atlantis over there for many, many, many years. So it's interesting that structure, that geographical structure does become very interesting. All right, anyway. Many Greek legends assert that the Greek ancestors derived from Ophites, the serpent people from the Western Sea, the Atlanteans. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. This will be different. This will be more covered in a future stream. But so there's something called seraphim. It's a type of angel. They're described as serpent-like with feathers. A lot of these were the rebellious ones, seemingly including Azazel. And they came down being serpent-like, and they could take different forms, and they were worshipped. And these serpent-like angels were treated as gods, and that's why you have serpent religions, being the number one prominent religion across the entire world. This is why you have serpents on the crowns of the Egyptian pharaohs and priesthood. They don't just think snakes are cool. They believe they were worshiping, their ancestors worshipped literal serpent-like people. You see why, now just think about this. Hypothetically, if what I'm saying is true, and there actually was angelic sons of God, metaphysical entities not limited to the material physical vessel or the roles within that confinement, who came and took women as wives, and they gave birth to children that were genetic abominations, and they even created hybrid with animals and all this great stuff. They could take different forms. They themselves looked as if to be like a hybrid. And they were worshipped as gods all around the world. And they gave all kind of advanced knowledge and taught them how to do metal and how to kill the embryo, how to kill life in the embryo, and much more. say that's true, hypothetically. And say that the powers that be know it's true. But as I tell this to you, with a good amount of historical evidence all around the world, you cannot help but shake the voice in your head that tells you it sounds crazy. Now think about it. And again, if that's true, think about how much of a disadvantage you're at or have. And if they try to pull that off again, you're almost surely doomed. Now this is why knowledge will, the books will be opened. In the end, people will come to and fro and knowledge will increase, because without the knowledge being increased, people would have no idea what they're about to see. It's not just going to be, little green men and aliens. No. Flat Earth won't save you, I can promise. The deception will include that. And they are going to seemingly, I know it sounds crazy, bro. I'm not stupid. Just look into it yourself. Don't be scared what other people think. You know what I'm saying? I have a lot of credibility that I try to hold to for Flat Earth, and I'm still going to tell you guys about this, and I know it sounds crazy. It's like, research it. Research it. So I don't want to scattergun too much. Let's see what other things I have on the tabs here. Yeah, that's pretty much what I want to cover, because the rest of it will require me to cover too long. Okay, so let's cover let's do a summary here. There's someone named Francis Bacon. He wrote The New Atlantis. He calls America the New Atlantis. And he says that it will be more advanced than Atlantis of the old ever was. But they are awaiting the arrival of the chosen ones they believe they track their ancestry to. And many of them are chained beneath the earth. And they will be released. And they will help to spread this new Atlantis, creating a one-world civilization. And it will have a central hub, seemingly in America, according to him. And there will be 10 kingdoms spread out across the world. And the 10 kings will all end up giving their power to the beast. And then there will be a one world order with a central leader. There will be a queen that comes from the south, or the outer edges as we know it to be, or somewhere out towards the outer edges, the far south. And she'll also give her power over to the beast. Okay, so the occultic groups, they believe they track their bloodlines back to the Atlanteans. They call it potentially the Aryan race, which seems like kind of a gravel term, but that's what the Germans were talking about. They believe they track their lineage back to Atlanteans, partial demigods, or just demigods, which means partial human. They truly believe this. And they're awaiting the source of their ancestry to return, so that they can be appointed into high positions within the new Atlantean hierarchy. They believe it was the source of all ancient knowledge, whereas it finally reached the pinnacle of being able to be communicated and relayed and written down and understood and more intricately distributed, all coming from the knowledge that was originally obtained in the garden, and with the aid of the sons of God. They got this ancient knowledge, and then they were wiped out, and they're trying to rebuild it. They maintained a lot of it. Some Gnostic teachings say that they literally put this information in 2 physical, literal towers that survived the deluge. There's a whole other conversation. Now, we have all kinds of questions here. Certainly, if you are a believer, the question is, well, how were there giants after the flood? Were they the same? Did some survive? Was there a second infringement upon genetics? Like, how did that work? What happened between 1-1 and 1-2? Was there a fight in heaven to destroy the current version of Earth that was then restored because we were told to replenish the Earth? What's the actual story as to these angelic creatures? Why did they rebel? Did they once inhabit the Earth and then it was taken away from them, and then they fought, and so since they fought, it was taken away from them more so, and then they, to enact revenge, came and misled humans? Did they have a position in which you could see the entire earth, similar to where the Messiah was, where you could see all the kingdoms, which seems to insinuate potential equidistant viewing, which would be something in the center with high elevation, like the mountain, and that you can't go see because it's illegal to go there in the center of the earth. And they could see everything, and they ventured out from there, and they kind of took women as wives. Is the Greek pantheon that was revered as gods actually just rebellious angels, or was it interchangeable with the Watchers? Did they literally take women as wives? And the story goes that when they did, the women would bore children very quickly, and then they would die during birth. And they would still line up to do it, as their lineage would go down as infamous, or more so famous. Infamous in the view of a believer. They go back way before even Babel. Yeah, exactly. Like the Tower of Babel, or Babel, which is funny. They say children babble, and it's all about languages. But anyway, and supposedly they actually speak Hebrews when they come out or try to. I digress. So that was just like that was a subsequent attempt to pull this off. And this goes back way further than that. And there are lots of questions that all deserve streams. But long story short, there are occultic bloodlines that track their bloodlines back thousands of years. They think they're little special boys. They think that they're literally genetically superior to you and that they're not entirely human, but their blood has become significantly diluted over the course of time. It's getting further and further away from their divine source. That's why they try to stay inbred and not to breed outside of their blood, because it would drastically dilute their blood that they're already trying to prevent doing that. Over the course of time, which each subsequent lineage or generation, the blood becomes more and more diluted. Apparently, these angels and demigods continued to mate with women and humans, and then they became so diluted in blood that they kind of got, reckless, and they were taken out. Plato describes them as having becoming so debased that they ended up to collapse. Now, we know Plato's a grappler. We know Greeks are grapplers. We know Greeks revered the Atlanteans and the knowledge that came from there. Now, that's why the occultic are obsessed with Greece, obsessed with Greek mythology, obsessed with the Greeks, because that was a relay of Atlantean knowledge. And so people say all roads track to Rome, and I oftentimes correct to say all roads track to Babylon, but seemingly really all roads track to the antediluvian era called Atlantis, that then track into Babylon, that then track into Rome. And it's very interesting. And when you look into it, yeah, it all has a Babylonian undertone, but Babylonian texts are pointing to knowledge that was known long ago. Now you look at the ancient Sumerian texts, the claimed story of Anunnaki, you look at Chinese texts, Japanese texts, South American texts, Mayan texts, you look at North American texts like Cherokee tribes, different Native American tribes on both coasts of the United States. You look all throughout the Eastern Hemisphere, Ethiopia, there is no sphere, so hemiplane. You look all throughout the world. There are stories of a very powerful sea-based city with merchants and skilled sellers who went around the world sharing knowledge. They shared all kinds of crucial aspects of advancement and civilization. They were revered as gods. And they had certain markers. They were more fair-skinned. They had certain type of color hair, and they were significantly taller than the rest of the people, and they had all kinds of knowledge. And they were revered, and there was... The story goes that Zeus is, not Zeus, but Poseidon, was given the sea. And then he birthed 10 children to a human woman, specifically 5 sets of male twins. And the first one was Atlas, the most powerful, and that's what the main city was named after, the island of Atlantis, named after Atlas, as was the sea surrounding it. And yeah, there were 10 kingdoms, 7 islands, 10 kings over the 10 kingdoms. Eventually, they became debased. They devolved. They ended up trying to take everyone over. There was all kinds of infighting. They got taken out with the Great Deluge, the Great Flood. So this was the pinnacle of the one world civilization in the antediluvian era. The occultic bloodlines that seemingly have an immense amount of power today still revere this civilization. They revere the bloodlines that were in power in the antediluvian climactic version of a city, or the climax of power back then. They tried to replicate it at one point. They got halted. They're trying to replicate it again. They're awaiting a release of seemingly the other 90% of the source of these demigods. we're told through prophetic text that in the end there will actually be an Atlantis 2.0, in the sense that there will be 10 kings over 10 kingdoms that will rule over the world and give all their power to a central power of the beast. So at the least, you need to inform yourself with the geographical consistency and historicity of this story. It isn't just about, oh, is Atlantis over here or over there? It was a whole entire world civilization. They're laughing at you when you argue about the sand being formed a certain way in a certain physical location. Because even if that's true, you're not getting the bigger picture, which is that there was a difference in blood and genetics. And genetic manipulation was well understood and known. I think they track back to that. And their occultic texts say they're going to rebuild it. And this is their religion. Like I just now told you, Ellie, what's her name? Ellie whatever, Billish or something like that. Jewish Kabbalist says that the Ark of the Covenant was actually a knockoff of the Atlantean Ark of the Covenant, which is where the demigods came and made a pact with us and said that we would never betray you, or the sons of God, the angels, and then their subsequent offspring, which is the demigods. So this is how I see it. It's an actual religion of inversion, but it is not founded upon complete fairy tale and mythos. And this is one of the biggest truth bombs I had to accept, but one thing that made me do it made me sit down and realize maybe I don't know as much as I think I do about the Bible. Maybe I've thrown it out a little bit eagerly. I didn't understand, why would you say kill every man, woman, and child, including the animals? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I'm not worshiping a God that kills everybody. And no one can answer my question. It doesn't make sense. Oh, they literally weren't humans. They were hybrids and giants, and they were genetic abominations. That makes sense. And then they were still, even the mercy of the Creator was like, you know what? You can rule over here. It's divvied out. Humans over here, over here. You can rule over here. You made an irreparable decision. So you're going to be punished eternally. But since you made your decision, you get to get what comes with it, because your punishment's going to be eternal. Similar to why evil elite people get all kinds of powerful gain and power on the earth right now, because what's coming for them metaphysically in the form of metaphysical judgment, metaphysical law, which they just acknowledge natural law, is going to be much more severe than what happens here on the earth. And the same thing back then. And even though they were like abominations, the Creator gave them mercy. It was like, okay, whatever. You have your place over here. You have your place over here. They wouldn't listen. They kept trying to kill the humans and eat their babies and make them kill their babies and sacrifice their babies and take over where they were living. And they would just never leave them alone. So eventually they had to be taken out because they kept on wanting to. They couldn't stop the insatiable thirst to take over all the surrounding areas. They were taken out, and they were hybrid and genetic abominations. Whether you believe the story or not, that's a different story. You weren't told that story. All of a sudden, makes a little bit of sense. Makes a little bit of sense. And all this was known, but had to play out under free will. So anyway, long story short, this is seemingly the true history of the world. It's like the craziest movie you've never seen. It's far beyond the comprehension of the average person that's closed-minded. You're not on this stream if you are closed-minded. If so, you definitely didn't make it to the 2-hour mark. So I'll just encourage you to look into it. This is maybe Atlantis 2.1 part 1. I'll do another one with a slideshow and more like coherent specific thing. I knew I needed to just break down the overarching idea. The part of Sodom and Gomorrah is a lot of gravy. We'll cover that more in the future too, but that is, they were trying to get the angels to have sex to create more demigods or giants. And you'll never be told that in church. And I've seen hybrid statues all over. It's symbolic. I know that didn't know they existed. I think they existed, yeah. Great information, thank you. Great stream, thank you. They definitely existed. Oh, they existed. The occult certainly thinks so. That doesn't mean they're right about everything, but this is how it is for me. If it's just like metaphorical and symbolic, why did every civilization around the whole world say the same story? It's just a primitive attempt to explain the inexplicable back then based on some form of spiritual or religious expression. That's what I used to think when I thought I was super woke in my early 20s. Well, why'd they all say the same thing across the whole world? This is why people fall for the alien deception, because at least it actually applies logic to the question and answers it instead of hand-wave dismissing it. So that's why the alien deception will work. The ancient alien things will work on a lot of people. Lots of flat earthers were into ancient aliens before that because they're truthers. They're like, okay, well, this doesn't add up. You told me they were primitive and stupid and didn't know each other, couldn't communicate to each other, and couldn't travel internationally around the world. But here they are, all building the same thing, same architecture, all kinds of advancement that we can't explain, all the same type of stories about things coming from the sky and telling them all the secrets of how to make metal, to all this different stuff. So how they know about that? How they all know the same story? Something that you told me about mainstream mystery is not adding up. So they came out with their little controlled opposition nonsense called Ancient Aliens, but they at least acknowledge it. You're not a truther in my book if you tap out when it starts to get heavy or have spiritual implications. Real truthers are not scared of spiritual implications. They're truthers. I think that's what the spiritual test is. Are you a truther, basically? Like an actual truther. Like, are you going to diligently seek the truth, and once you find it, seek and speak the truth, and no matter what it is, you're going to hold steadfast and prove all things to be true. So there's that. How about chimeras, medusas, and other half-human, half-animal seems to coincide? They're all based on the genetic abomination of demigods, which come from the Watchers, the rebellious angels. Oh, yeah. How dare you? If you take the Bible literally, how do you explain Romans 13? How do I explain an entire chapter in the Bible? Let every soul be subjected unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of Yah, the powers that are ordained of Yah. Yeah, if you actually look at the actual context of what's being said here, then this is your like home run here. It's a letter. It's a letter to the Romans, and this is actually out of context. We weren't even shown the actual letter, right? But basically in the context, he's saying, look, I know it seems terrible who's above you, but trust that the Creator put that there for a reason, and it's for your protection. That was so tough. And also, I think the scriptures are super messed with, and you have to get to the Greek and get to the Hebrew and get to the context. Like with all of this, all the letters, all the context is missing. So I don't claim the modern English version is perfect from beginning to end, although that typical question of Romans 13 is super easy to answer to me. But in a world, I didn't realize that was the first verse of the chapter. That's why I didn't answer from the beginning. I could tell that's what you're asking, because that's like very generic. Gotcha. Anyway, look into it or don't look into it, but what you're going to find out is something's going on, bro. Something's going on. It's very crazy, man. It's very crazy. And I just had to be a truther. I had to swallow my pride and go look into it. So there you go. There is that location in Africa. Looks very interesting. There are a bunch of ancient maps that make claims about Atlantis. Make claims about old Antarctica. This is what I think overall. The geography is completely different. The land is shifted. Some of it's above water. Some of it's below water. Everything has changed. It's broken up. It's moved everywhere. Mountains have moved. Everything has moved. And immense earthquakes that broke land apart. Things that we can't even understand. And possibly, there were oceans just in the center and then a giant piece of land, and maybe Pangea is a bastardation of the truth, and there actually was a gigantic piece of land before everything was broken up. At least a giant piece of land that was all higher elevation towards the center, and the center was a central hub, and that's where they overlooked because they were the quote-unquote gods, which means they were just not limited to material confinement. They could go to the center or to the mountain of Olympus, which is actually what some call Mount Meru. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, now imagine like that map of the North Pole being the central hub of Atlantis. That's interesting, isn't it? So, yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities. I like where the central hub of Atlantis. I don't know. Maybe that place in Africa is just a little offshoot, like a subsidiary or like a satellite state. A bunch of crazy stuff. Anyway, thank you guys for kicking it. I'm pretty tired, and hopefully I kept it interesting while telling you all the info. I got tired pretty quick. These lights kill me late at night, bro. I gotta start doing them earlier. Thank you for kicking it, though. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak flying contentment that consists of ignorance. I gotta get out of here. I'm tired. And I haven't been feeling that good the last couple of days, so that's why I kind of took some days off. But seemingly debate coming up. We have the True Earth Mount Meru Summit Friday. So that's 11/11 and 11/12. A lot of epic speakers. I'll be giving a speech on Saturday. A bunch of legendary people going to be there. You can get your tickets at temms.live. True Earth Mount Meru Summit. TEMMS.live. You can use Witsit50 for 50% off, or you can use any speaker. Make sure you use a coupon though, you get half off. Maybe a debate Thursday, but I'm super busy and it was super late notice, so I don't know, but that would be on the Crucible. Got some more podcasts that are in the works, some pretty big podcasts. So I'm going to start doing like my runs on different podcasts. We're working on the website, working on the app, working on finalizing the schedule so we can get it out there, have certain types of show, gravy shows, flatter shows. I know I'm a few weeks behind on that, but I'm trying to get everything done. Yeah, just a lot. Honestly, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make trailers and edit the videos and put together all the streams and then try to put all this other stuff behind the scenes, but it's all good. And of course, we had to travel and we got a baby on the way. There's a bunch of stuff going on, but yeah, you guys get it. If there's anything on Cash App or PayPal, I'll read them off at the beginning of next stream. You got my word. I'll read off all the ones I haven't read off or I'm behind on. Let me see if I can find out. I'll say my P.O. box audibly because you're a legend if you're still here or watch the whole stream. So it's just P.O. Box 171433. I should maybe pay attention to make sure that's true though. P.O. Box 171433, Spartanburg, South Carolina 29301. A lot of people asking for the P.O. Box. A lot of people ask me for like a book list that I would like as well, and I have plenty of books if you guys want to help a brother out and get some books. That would be like my favorite gift probably. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm just seeing if I got a picture of make sure the number's right. Don't see it there. Good show. Thank you. Let's see here. It's crazy how I just got so tired, bro. I think it's the lights, man. The lights being so bright. I don't see it, but I'm almost positive I memorized it correctly. So, yeah. It's 171433, Spartanburg, South Carolina 29301. Cool. $sign WitsitGetsIt on Cash App, paypal.me/innerworld. You can sign up to become a member or a miswit down below. Patreon.com/WitsitGetsIt. We'll be announcing the weekly day that we'll be doing streams. I'm trying to figure a day that'll work out for everyone. I'm assuming weekends, but I don't want to do anything that feels real workish on Shabbat. I like to chill. Maybe Saturday night. Yeah, cool. We'll figure it all out. We got it all working out. So like I said, this week kind of put me back a little bit because I have not been feeling that good, but I feel better now. And we're good. And I didn't get genetically modified or anything. Crazy how that works. I just kind of was tired for a couple days. All right. Maybe I just needed to chill and catch up and rest. Thanks for kicking it. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think, bro? My entire life, every time I found out something to be true that wasn't popular, all the weak-minded, stupid people all attack you. They don't research anything. They can tell you everything that the left tackle from the Packers has been through since he was 5 years old, how much he weighs, how long his ACL is, what's his 40 time, the difference between the last 5 years and his first year, and all this nonsense. Tell you how much he weighs and how much he benches, but they don't know where they live. There are just people that you can't, they're going to tell you everything that's ever happened on The Voice. Have you heard about the TV series I Get Brainwashed 2.0 or whatever? No. Have you heard about The Earth's Not a Ball? Have you heard about Atlantis, but actually heard about it? You know what I'm saying? You're always going to have that, bro. What's popular is not true. What's true is not popular, especially nowadays. We're in the freaking, people are so lost. But just consider yourself blessed to have even found yourself towards the truth as it's in front of you. Even if you're denying it at the moment, you're still blessed because you're hearing it. And, I would say, try to become balanced spiritually. Find the truth and seek it. Once you find it, speak it. People revile you for his name's sake or for the truth's sake, rejoice, related to all the prophets before you. And that's what happens whenever you speak the truth. So it's all good. Lots of cool stuff coming. Some things I can't make announcements about yet, but cool stuff coming. Support the summit. That would help a brother out a lot. And until tomorrow, I'm sure I'll do a stream since I had to take so many days off. I'll do a stream tomorrow night, maybe after the sun goes down or something. Because I will admit it's starting to feel like work, and so I don't want to do too much if it feels like work on Shabbat. I like to rest. How do you spell the name of the Kabbalist you mentioned? Ellie something? Let me see if I can find it. That's weird. I don't remember what her last name is. I gotcha. How dare you? How dare you hit me with this question at the end? Bro, why did my eyes get so heavy, bro? Okay. Ellie Crystal. E-L-L-I-E. Crystal. C-R-Y-S-T-A-L. All right, thank you guys for kicking it. I'll catch up with you tomorrow night. We're going to keep bringing gravy. We'll have great biscuits and gravy Sunday morning, and then we'll have glow busters. We got lots of stuff coming with the summit. It's going to be epic. I got to work on my presentation for that. Maybe a debate. I don't even know if I have time. It might be too late to notice. But I'm getting everything caught up. We're working on the website and the app. We got a lot of dope stuff coming. You guys get it. I don't want to be too reiterative. Thanks for the P.O. Box info. May want to put in the description. Yeah, I'll try to add it to the subscription. Cool. Thanks for kicking it. I love you guys. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Peace.
That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature that mean extorted it. They forging it if news ain't good informant to informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we port and ships important. Yes, of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informing this. It looked like we were snoring tricks. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?